Welcome to New Realities. My name is Alan Steinfeld. I'm here with a panel of experts from Contact in the Desert, Dr. Desiree Hurtak, Linda Moulton Howe, and JJ Hurtak, talking about this revelation that came through today. And Linda, do you want to talk about what actually we learned today on the news from debrief?
I guess the headline is that somebody who has worked in the National Reconnaissance Organization and who was working in National Geospatial Intelligence Agency said that he was confirming multiple craft that would be in the category of not human origin. And those three words today for me are revolutionary, because finally, somebody who has worked in a very technical and important intel position is now saying that he is very well aware of extraterrestrial entities and craft that are not made by humans.
So he's a government military guy coming out for the first time publicly saying there are craft of non-human origins that the US government has in its possession. Dr. Hurtak, what was your response to that revelation?
And dozens.
And dozens, more, not more than one.
Well, as a former independent investigator regarding UFO crash sites worldwide, I would say this is a step forward in recognizing that within our military, as well as our intelligence services, there are those individuals keen enough to understand that the world requires verifications of the extraterrestrial hypothesis. So I see this as a very positive step.
Well, it's more than verification. Desiree Hurtak, what was your take on this actually disclosure moment?
Well, I think the important thing is that he is a whistleblower, which means he's heard from many people that while he was on the UAP task force, that they were withholding information from the task force. That's what got him pissed, if I can put it that way. So he has not only just gone public, he actually has spent several months trying to bring this out through normal government channels.
So this is a day of revelation that finally someone, and they were protected under a new law that was enacted in the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, that was signed by Biden in December, that whistleblowers who had previous NDAs about UFOs, UAPs, were allowed to come forward finally to express what they knew. And now we have the first one coming forward. So what does this mean to you, Linda Moulton Howe, after 40-something years of investigations?
Well, I almost felt exhilaration this morning with the idea that someone who had worked for the National Reconnaissance Organization and geospatial, when they are dealing with the highest secrets, felt that it was important for him in a strange way to test the new structure. Are they really going to be able now to start opening up truth, even if it's not official by the president of the United States or someone else?
Right.
And if this is the beginning, if this is going to be one of the levels that he has established for other whistleblowers to come forward, that to me would be the beginning of what we need so badly.
This opens the floodgates, is what you're saying. And JJ, you...
A new sociology, a new psychology that we're not alone in the universe. So long overdue. My wife and I have worked in other countries. We're social scientists, cosmologists. In other countries, people take it for granted that we're not alone in the universe.
Yeah.
And I had had the opportunity in my work with former astronaut Gordon Cooper in the area of ufology to actually be part of the retrieval of actual space metal that's been analyzed in other countries, showing definitely that there is a physical scientific perspective that we now have to put into the drama of how our military intelligence community, as well as our political leadership, can harmonize a policy, a roadmap, a topology that we're not alone in the universe. And we need really a space diplomacy for the trade-offs they will have with the cosmic others.
This is a day we've been waiting for. Go ahead.
Yes, and there is, to me, it is a sense and feeling of if the United States could continue with the inertia that we have felt this morning of this man with a tremendous amount of knowledge, as he said, multiple craft do we now have, and that it is of non-human origin, it begs for there to be an entire president of the United States, all of the Senate, all of the House coming together and doing a full bore national television. We now want to go beyond what this man has said, because we now feel that it is time that all Americans at least
A type of,
know some truth.
That's
a
right.
type of government, the government must confess its limitations, at the same time, provide a step forward in reconciling the past with the future.
Right. Well, what's really interesting, Alan, you and I were talking about this even before today when it came out, is that in the near future, we think even before the end of the year, not just whistleblowers, but actually witnesses are being prepared right now to come forward. They're just waiting for their non-disclosure agreements to go away so that they can really come forward. And this is what's really starting to happen. I think this is just the first. I mean, I would love to see the avalanche of governments coming out, but it really is probably going to take a few more of these people coming forward.
Well, the avalanche actually started May 18th, 2023, when Gary Nolan at the SALT Talks in New York said he just heard that 10 senators heard a congressional hearing where a whistleblower came forth and he said this opened a whole hornet's nest. And I think this is what he's referring to. Today's testimony was the hornet's nest that just blew open the lid, that something has shifted now, finally.
And the immediate big question is, why do they feel and have felt for so long that we should not know, that no one should know? And very clearly what I kept feeling today as we talked and as we read about this man's statement. For us as a human species on the earth, to be completely denied information by the so-called power brokers is saying that our entire species is broken. Because instead of being united by truth, we have been separated by layers and layers of power brokers that have used extraterrestrials and technology as a reason to keep the entire world from knowing what they're actually doing.
Right.
And right now, maybe we will come into more of a human planet. again.
Yes, yes.
All right. I feel the reasons why the cover up has gone on is because it goes back to even to Roswell, 1947, 75 years ago. I mean, think of all the different things that have probably been covered up since Roswell, because it's been a lot. There was the Kingman crash, which I believe some of these vehicles that he's saying they have in their possession is one from the Kingman crash. And so there's years of this. Then in addition, like you were saying, I think he was also implying that some of the technology has come from them in a back engineering way. So how do you release that to the people? And also, in my opinion, it's not a simple thing. It's not one intelligence flying over that got stuck in our radar frequencies or something and crashed. It's a complex scenario. And so there's three reasons why I think.
But what's even bigger than this was in the debrief article that actually broke the story this morning. What is it, June 5th, 2023, that information has been illegally held from Congress.
Yes.
This is the revolution. It's not about aliens. I mean, of course it is, but it's about illegal information. This has been a coup in our government.
Not he held back from Congress, held back from the UAP task force.
And held back from the American people, right? Illegal information. Who's behind, Dr. Hurtak? You've been in the game for a long, long time. Who's illegally holding back this information?
Well, we have, in my humble opinion, not only the duly elected government, but we have a military government, so we speak on its own logic. And we also have that of corporations dealing with different areas of information gathering. So we seek now a new harmony that's necessary to go forward and to confess our limitations that have been vacuums in the way that the different information gathering groups, naval intelligence, Air Force intelligence, Army intelligence, and of course, the corporations have all had their way of creating this vacuum situation now that has taken the American people by surprise. But nonetheless, Gordon Cooper, one of the great heroes of outer space, decorated by President Kennedy, who wrote this book, Leap of Faith, tells us, and I read this, I think it's so relevant what he
Yeah,
had
it
to
is
say.
relevant, yes.
But I'm going Gordon, but as I see it, our government is now trapped in a big box of old lies. It's going to take a lot of courage on the part of some future administration to say, quote, folks, our government has been lying to you all these years. Now we're going to come out or clean and tell you the real truth. As I said, that's going to take courage, something that doesn't seem to be in surplus of in Washington these days, end of quote. Nonetheless, knowing some of the top scientists and researchers and knowing how difficult it is to deal with more than 82 cosmic civilizations, according to some experts, we need a roadmap of psychology, sociology, so that people can prepare to see this as a great opportunity to move into future societies in space and learn from a new, who we call space law diplomacy, the trade-offs that can help the human race, rather than, shall we say, hurt us through unnecessary fear and interpretation.
I agree with all that, but I want to get back to square one. If something's illegally held from the government, what is the next step? Are there charge, is this, someone's broke a law, or a whole group, or maybe the Air itself broke the law that has disrupted our constitutional rights and freedom? What are the ramifications of that?
One thing that has come up in the discussions, though, with the David Grusch is the fact that there are other governments also trying to get information. So it's really a race to keep this information and to investigate this information. So that's one of the excuses for why they haven't.
No, but what it says in this debrief article, illegally held from Congress, and he filed a whistleblower complaint because he suffered illegal retaliations for his confidential disclosure of UAP. So, Linda, what do you feel the ramification for illegally holding information from Congress?
I think it's going to have to come up in some, whether it's public or non-public, that we've got to hear from the representatives of people, and Kirsten Gillibrand and Burchett. They would be the ones that I would like to know how they would address this, but there's a whole other facet. Gary Nolan, Stanford University, works in pathology and genetics. And he was on television, or a video that was on the net, it was a week or two ago, for about an hour. And his whole context was, we have extraterrestrial, non-human craft, and that he is coming into this, that we need to provide a bridge in which we can develop out of the technology companies from which we humans would then benefit and grow profit. Now, once you combine that with the idea that this man feels that he was hurt and intimidated for wanting to talk about the craft that non-human origin. Right? And Gary Nolan from Stanford is talking about how we can develop corporations and things to make money from the propulsion systems. That to me was like opening a door, that this is how Congress, this is how the grown-up world is now going to try to approach this. Let's tell the American people that we're now going to be able to make corporations out of new ways of propulsion, and everybody will benefit, whether that's true or not. I think they're trying to lay that.
I don't go along with that. That's another level of cover-up. What needs to happen, I feel, have this guy come forward, talk to the American people, talk about what he says, the recovery and of partial fragments, or includes intact and partially intact vehicles, of non-human creation, non-human origins off planet B. Lay that in front of the public and then not give it to corporations, which is short selling the American people what they rightfully own. If the government owns these craft, then why are they selling it? So there's something really big and deceptive that has been going on.
But this is the vehicle that Nolan is trying to
Yeah.
say, this is the way we can do it and everybody shares,
Mm.
whether that will be.
Through
the-
corporations.
Yes, and
Uh-huh.
that was just a week or so ago
I
that he made that.
Yeah.
statement.
It seems like corporations has been the problem all along, covering up the fact that obviously, like my favorite line, they're not filling up their gas tanks to get here.
Well, industrial
Right.
spying is even greater than military spying, but keep in mind that in 1995, there was disclosure in Washington DC by Scott Jones, who invited me and John Mack from Harvard University to put all cards on the table. This was money also brought in from the Rockefeller Foundation. And invitations were sent out to all levels of the diplomatic corps on the theme of the meeting of cosmic cultures. That was the actual theme. Very few people attended, and it had to take another several decades to get people supercharged as to the importance. And I think with the wonderful breakthroughs and discoveries now taking place, and also the testimonies of Air Force pilots and those coming out of the closets of military service, I think this is a drama that can be pushed into a positive solution. That was Scott Jones's feeling, that sooner or later we had to see a new, shall we say, blueprint of how the left hand and the right hand could cooperate together in a clap.
So what are the implications, Desiree, of what happened?
We've been waiting for this release of information for a long time. We're not sure if this is going to really move anything forward any different than Elizondo back in 2017, which really things didn't move forward, even though we were all hoping as well. Now, Congressman Burchett from Knoxville, Tennessee, that region has already posted the information from Grusch in the his Twitter feed. So we're hoping more and more people, we're all waiting. Is the New York Times going to publish this? Is CNN going to grab it? Is Fox going to grab it? What's going to happen?
There were
next?
2 New York Times reporters that broke the story in the debrief, Leslie Keene and Ralph Blumenthal. Maybe the New York Times refused to publish this, but maybe they will now, because this is exploding
Yeah.
all over the internet.
Well, I think
So-
it's up to all of us to keep pushing this to move forward.
But Linda, you have over 200,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. What do you think the implication of this story today will have on the public and your viewers and your movement forward as one of the experts in the field?
He spoke as if he already knew that he has protection. So my sense is this was arranged through Chris Mellon, former
How do
Assistant
you-
Secretary.
why did you get that? That's it.
It was described as
Oh.
Chris
Oh,
Mellon
it
as
was.
being partly responsible for having him come forward.
Okay.
And I think that that means that the people from the past that are presently trying behind the scenes to help get this open, like Chris Mellon, that they wanted this to happen. And that what I see is he comes across as so strong, so credible, that it would be an encouragement for others to try to follow. And that right now we're on something of a balance beam. It's either going to now go forward with more and more and more coming out, which is my prayer, because we are living such a huge lie.
Mhm.
The other thing, somebody could come in and try to slap him down, and it would be a signal to everybody else. And right now, I'm not sure even if Chris Mellon knows what is the consequence of this story, and that the New York Times and the Washington Post, if they are working on it right now with a bunch of reporters, and we get 2, 3, 4 big pages in the New York Times tomorrow or the next day, this will be worth it.
Well, in the debrief article, it says Jonathan Gray, who's a generational officer for the United States intelligence community with a top secret clearance, who's currently working for the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, where the analysis of UAPs has been a focus. Previously, he's experienced serving private aerospace, but says now the non-human intelligence phenomena is real. We are not alone. That's the headline.
Yes.
Grace says that openly, publicly. Retrievals of off-world vehicles are not limited to the United States. This is a global phenomena, yet a global solution continues to elude us. JJ, what's the implications of that?
Well, it means that we have to put on our thinking hat and look really at the fuller picture, a portion of which we see as phenomenon, but there's also what the Greek philosophers called the noumena, the inner dimensions of consciousness, what's involved here. I had the opportunity to work with scientists at Stanford Research Institute and publish this book called Mind Dynamics, showing that there is an area where we can learn other areas of consciousness, other dimensional possibilities of life. Linda here has a background looking at what is called cattle mutilation. So we know the story is a mixed bag. It's good and bad. So we have to understand that those at the top realize that we have to look at this in terms of the long range implications as we graduate from Homo sapiens sapien to Homo universalis, universal humanity. So it's an easy situation saying, hey, like the ancient Greek philosophers or Roman philosophers, we've got space people there on the horizon. The question is what they can do for us, what they can share with us, how we can share our maturity by avoiding scenarios of death.
And if we knew the whole truth
Yeah.
about animal mutilations, we might actually find in our human soul that we would be feeling compassion, because as I understand it, at least some of the reasons for animal mutilations is because some life forms are dying out, and that there is this long experimental genetic interaction with Earth, 278 million years at least, that they have become dependent upon certain proteins and essences from this planet. If that's the case, then eventually we could have trade, but also, to me, it makes me feel a compassion that if we understood the whole story, it wouldn't be frightening. It would be when something is dying out.
And I think this is why the
be trying to
Yes, and we can
survive.
actually help them. And I think that's very important because a lot of people hearing this for the first time, may be saying, well, is it like the Spanish coming to conquer the Indians again or something like that? But they've been around for a while. They've been on the planet and they really haven't hurt us in that sense. They've hurt a few cattle, of course, but so do we. Look at the situation. That right?
So we must think very positive, very constructive, and realize this is the opportunity that we see ourselves as being prepared and oriented for a cosmic citizenship to join in an association of what the late astronaut Mitchell called the cosmic cultures.
Well, when I read this line from the article by Jonathan Gray, who's part of the intelligence community, saying, we are not alone, it felt like a domino effect. You've been saying that for years. We are not. We are at now the ending of Contact in the Desert, the world's largest UFO gathering. This is where we're doing this broadcast from. And we've known that, but the domino effect is coming from us out into the public, and slowly people are getting the revelation. Wow, we're not alone, we're not alone. And it's echoing, it feels, throughout civilization.
I think that there are going to be more people who say, I told you so.
We're including all of us. But it's true. This is a revelation. This is what we've been waiting for. Where does it go from here, Linda Moulton Howe? Do you see it?
It needs to be strengthened. And it needs to be strengthened by people like Gillibrand and like Burchett and the heads of the committees. If tomorrow or the next day, we start seeing little press conferences or big press conferences, and they're going to reinforce what he has released, non-human origin, my God, those are the missing words since World War II.
But also by thinkers like Russell Targ, Harold Pudoff, with national security, and others on the higher levels of seeing where we will be 50 years from now. Realizing that we need really scientific and, shall we say, cultural trade-offs so that all parts of humanity can see this as an impetus to move up the ladder of evolution rather than go back into the closet.
That's why we've been pushing for it. It is about evolution. So what do you think we go from this?
Just the first. And I know, as we've talked about, that there's many witnesses, eyewitnesses that are ready to come forward. So this is what we're expecting this year, maybe even into next year. I think at a certain point, it just can't be stopped. And it's up to the people as well.
Well, you know, it's so exciting for me and all of us that we're here at Contact in the Desert on its final day, and we're sharing this news
Yes.
with you. Linda's always said, we're not alone in this universe. That's what the headlines of the New York Times, you're looking, this might be that day.
Exactly. I think it has the potential, but it's got to go further. It has to be strengthened. If there is no stand up from Congress,
Mhm.
then I think it will sink. If Congress gets into the act now and says, this is who we have to protect, we need to learn more. This could be the year. I've always been told for a long time, 2023 is it.
You have been
It's
told.
going to be this year that we finally are going to be living in a completely different relationship with the universe. We are a citizen in a Milky Way galaxy, and that there are 3 trillion at least galaxies in this universe.
Graduating.
For us to
Yes.
finally understand and be able to embrace ourselves and others as other intelligence in a universe in which we are a part, and that we are not alone. That to me is what I have been living for, Tim.
And your note says, ironically, Linda, the Pentagon and government have just validated your work and your work, Dr. Hurtak, since the 70s. And
The
your work-
ultra-terrestrial, which means even beyond the extraterrestrial, there's still even a higher
Yes.
level of what we would call, and others, the avatars or the angelic dimension. We have to understand. So as we go into the future, let us go with discernment, wisdom, but also compassion.
I just want to follow up one thing about Congress not acting. If it says here, they're illegally going against the wishes of Congress. How could Congress lawmakers ignore the fact that there's an illegality
Exactly.
happening that's just been exposed? Forget the aliens, and we don't forget them
That's
completely.
what I mean.
But yes,
They
but
need to have a reaction against this.
against their own, if something is illegal, isn't that what laws are for? To stop illegality. So what part of it was it who's doing something
I just-
illegally?
That it's not just the report that he gave today to the press. He has been pushing this in areas of the government, saying this information needs to come out. It's being suppressed. It's being held back from the people who are in control of putting this forward to the government, to the world, to the Congress. And this is where the limitation is. He's been fighting this for like 6 months at least.
Right. And he's one of the whistleblowers that are
Yeah.
allowed to come out because of the new National Defense Authorization Act. But lay out, Linda, who is doing what to whom? Who's the illegal part? Who's behind? What are yours, as you see
I do
it?
not even think that any of us can speculate about that tonight, because Alan, those were some of the most surprising words in this release. The illegality. And I think it's probably going to come down into the area that people in Congress have had
Mhm.
briefings about extraterrestrial biological entities and craft, but they have not been allowed to
Well,
talk about.
But we can talk about the Air Force holding back information probably for 75 years. That was illegal, especially when there's been a demand by the Defense Intelligence Office.
But Alan, remember, this was during the Cold War. Much of this came forth, and because of the need to have the Holy Grail, to find out who has the best technology that can go between the
But it was
planets.
still illegal to withhold
But
this.
in the
from
context
people.
of the Cold War, there was other situations that come into the nuances of what is legal and what is
Okay, but
cosmically a higher responsibility. So we're looking at the big picture, and I grant you, this is a way of looking at new leadership. As our great patriot, Gordon Cooper, has said, a leap of faith, but we need to have the faith stronger than the doubt, and realizing that we have cosmic counterparts that will help us go through this quagmire of history.
okay, but JJ, we're moving into a new future as of today. What does that future look like? Let's bring it out. Let's roll out the ships and the bodies in front of the American public and the world.
Yes.
Let's get the greatest minds we have to all look at what is this phenomena that is confronting us.
It shows us that human evolution is part of a higher.
Yes, of course. We
Mind
know.
one is part of mind two, the cosmic mind. The human heart is part of the universal consciousness of divine love and experience. So what Linda and I agree is the soul. The soul vibrate, S-O-U-L, soul vibration. It holds all of us together in the quest of new life. So let us go beyond the questions and answers. We can't answer all of the questions, but we have enough to know that the greater drive, the impulse to see Ecce Homo, the man in higher, or the woman in higher glory is before us.
That's the ultimate future. This is what we've been fighting for.
Say, I'm hoping, like Ronald Reagan had indicated, that people maybe will then come together in a peaceful way. I think that's so important in a certain sense, that we see ourselves as one, because I think that's what the extraterrestrials are waiting for. They're waiting for us not to be playing tribal warfare all the time or going against situations with nuclear weapons, which if you do the research, they are totally against, but they are here really waiting for us to understand who we are as a cosmic citizen.
So just to maybe wrap it up, we could go on and on with speculation. Let's see what unfolds in the next couple of days. Let's see if Congress acts.
That's right.
Let's see if Ross, who's the Australian reporter that Cohart has an Australian reporter talk to an American intelligence. We're not an American reporters. How'd that happen? How did someone like Ross get in?
Well, let's look even at Bloomberg, who
Ralph
he
Bloomberg.
knew my friend, Dr. John Mack, and knew my work with John Mack in Africa and other places. And of course, Leslie Keane, who is a great friend of our late associate, Bud Hopkins.
Yeah, right.
So we have top reporters from the American side. The world community will be joining us, and this will go on into further discussion. But again, this illustrates what Lynn and I feel. Our planet is a schoolhouse, and we're going to graduate now.
Well, and it's the light of human consciousness that is really leading the way. That's been behind your work for so long, Linda, and yours, JJ and Desiree. Thank you. Remember, Linda, we're not alone in the universe. We've never been alone.
To the real stars.
That's
A
right.
new beginning.
Yes, it is a new beginning.
Life, but the beginning of the next life, a new planet, a new
Yeah.
hope, a new humanity, an understanding of the higher evolution.
And Earth is becoming a two-planet system
Mhm.
because we're going to be in Mars,
Mhm.
and then it will be Earth and Mars. So of all the things that could happen that could help would be getting past this silly, childish concept that we have been kept in by power brokers, that we were a only intelligent life in this
Are
universe.
they intelligent?
No, it's not true.
Right.
And this is the beginning.
This is.
I think this is the serious beginning of this opening up.
It's the debrief article. Intelligence Officer USA has retrieved craft of non-human origins. That's the debrief article. Go to thedebrief.org. Also go to, what was the news show we just watched here? World News? No, it wasn't World News.
Nation.
Nation News, Ross. What?
News
News Nation, you could see a broadcast on that, but we're trying to break it down and understand what are the implications. Any final words from you?
Times, from the LA Times and all over the world. We're not alone in the.
And so we are at the frontier of a new time, a new age, and a new humanity, which is what we've all been saying. Give us some feedback, subscribe to this channel, look at Earth Files, look at the Academy for Future Science. And thank you for watching today. We'll be giving more updates, but it's just so exciting. We're here at Contact in the Desert with some of the experts who've been studying ufology for years, or just not even ufology, human civilization and its evolution. That's the moment we're at now. I'm Alan Steinfeld. Thanks for watching.